I know you are super excited to jump in and start using TFS for version control. But before we do that, we have to set up our Visual Studio so that it uses TFS for our version control and also will set up to the OTC server. So let's make that happen. All right, so the first thing you need to do is in your menu items at the top here, we're going to choose the option for tools. And what we're doing is setting up the default to use TFS. In other words, at the very bottom of this menu, I have options. So click on options. And then I'm going to make sure that I select the third item down, which is source control, either here, and then we'll pull up the plugin. Either one will bring up this box that says which software, which version control do you want to use as your default. Git is a very popular software for version control, but in this course and utilizing Visual Studio, we're going to use Visual Studio's Team Foundation Server, TFS. So that is the default we want to use anytime we open up Visual Studio. That is what we're going to select and then choose OK. Nothing magical has happened, no fireworks or anything exciting, so let's see what we can do to make something a little bit more exciting here. So we need to connect to the server at OTC. And the way that we're going to do that, and that's the server at OTC is what's going to house all of our main software, the master software for us that we created. So we are going to go over to, instead of tools this time, we're going to choose team and we're going to choose manage connections. Manage connections brings us up this new pane we haven't seen before called Team Explorer-Connect. So this is how we're going to interact with the server and how we're going to upload and download our files from the server. And we're going to click on this yellow box. Inside there is a link to Manage Connections. So we're going to click on that. And that brings us up this box that says Connect to Team Foundation Server. So in other words, I have none at the moment. We're creating a connection to the server at OTC. So we want to add a connection. We want to connect to that OTC server, which happens to be called CIS team.otc.edu. And then we want to select HTTPS, which changes our port number to 443. So this is the address of the server at OTC that we want to utilize. And we're going to use the HTTPS protocol, which is a little bit more secure. And then we're going to select OK. At this point, you should be asked for your credentials. That would make sense. If you're at OTC, it's sufficient just to put in Markley K, your username. Obviously not my username unless you know my password, but hopefully that would be good for you, bad for me. But if you're at home, you want to type in this additional portion. So if you're at home, you're going to type in OTC and then, what is that, backward slash, and then your username. So this is an important piece. If you don't add the OTC backslash from home, you won't be able to connect. So once you put in your username, seems like password is appropriate, and then click on OK. And ideally, after it thinks and connects and does things, it should eventually, if I keep talking and stalling, there we go. You now have a connection to the server at OTC, so we can hit close. And once that happens, you're going to see what's called collections or otherwise user accounts that are all on the server at OTC. And so obviously you choose your name. And once you choose on your name, you're going to see, I've already set up this folder for you called CIR, so it's a team project it's called, which is like a folder. So I've set you up one called CIS 150. You should see that already in your under team projects. If you don't, please let me know as soon as possible because you won't be able to use it unless you have a project set up. And then click on select all, which is fine since that's kind of synonymous. And then click on connect. And then some magic happened. All right, so we have something going on here. Now this is an important piece. Now we have this yellow box that's saying configure your workspace. Oh gosh, more fancy words. All right, so all that's saying is, I'm going to click on that so I don't have to talk and click at the same time. All this is saying is, here is the remote server's address, and here is your local address that I think that TFS is trying to say, if I need to correlate the folders. So in other words, is this where you're going to store your local files? And here's where you're going to store your remote files. And so it's a mapping, if you will, between the two. So wherever I keep my local files, and I'm just kind of creating a link between the two. I don't want to keep it in this default C Markley something sort. I don't even know. Thank you. So what I'm going to do is click on the ellipse and choose some place in my local directory where I'm going to keep my local version of these files. So I'm going to have the master files, if you will, up on the OTC server, and then my copy that I'm working on in my local directory. So I'm going to click on maybe documents. I'll make a new folder. I'll call this one CIS 150 W01 just to match. You can call it whatever you want, obviously. And then I'm going to click on OK and make sure that's the path. So now I'm kind of linking these two together. So my workspace is a fancy name for where am I keeping my local folders, my local files, my local projects that are linked somehow to this remote server up at OTC. So once we do that, we should be good to go. Map and get, that seems like a good option. So all I'm doing is making that connection. And it says, okay, so the mapping was successful. I'm not quite sure what that means. So what I'm going to do is, now I have these choices that I'll get more and more comfortable with, but the one I want to select is Source Control Explorer. If for some reason this is not what you're seeing, you can get to this option from the home icon here in the top of this pane. But we're going to now click on Source Control Explorer, and what you're going to see is on the left-hand side, there's the folder that we found on us at OTC's server, and then it's mapped to our local directory right here, which we don't have any files in. And so what I would probably do at this point is I'm going to right-click on this and I'm going to add a new folder, and maybe in this, just to keep things organized, maybe I'll call this Homework. That way I have a folder called Homework. And in order to get it into my local path, what I will do, I'm going to come up to this menu item at the top, and it says Get Latest Version. So what I've done is I've created a folder on the server. You can see that I've made the change, and so I'm going to get the latest version. And that should now make my local folder in this local path. So if I were to bring up, I'm just clicking on that for you so you can see it. So if I were to bring up my documents, where did I say I was local path? My documents, CIS 150, you can see that I have this homework file also. So now I've created a workspace. My workspace is my local directory. My workspace has documents CIS 150, and it has a homework folder in it. So here's where I will keep my homework, just to keep things kind of organized. And then I also have it on, it's going to go away as soon as I click on it. I also have it here on my server at OTC. So now I'm ready to start creating some actual projects.